The Mandalorian Wars was the term given to a 16-year conflict between the Mandalorian warrior culture, also known as the Mandalorian Neo-Crusaders, and the Galactic Republic. It lasted from about 3,976 BBY to 3,964 BBY. Prior to the Mandalorian's official attack on the Republic, around 3,963 or so, 3,964 at the Battle of Munkor. I think I pronounced it right. Um, it was prior to that. What happened in between that was, well, the Mandalorians were attacking the unknown regions. They were attacking the unknown parts of the galaxy. They were attacking unaligned worlds with the Republic, and the Republic says, okay, so long as you don't threaten us, you can do whatever you want. So much for poetic justice on that. Led by Mandalore the Ultimate, and led by and with the help of his lieutenant, Caddis Fett. I think I pronounced that name right, but I know I got last name right since he is the descendant, the ancestor of Boba Fett and Jango Fett and the Clone Army entirely. The Mandalorians had conquered systems along the eastern edge of the galaxy, and this was like prior to their Republic attack. Um, Through their conquest, it led to the near extinction of the Cathar species, and it wasn't until their assaults near the planet Terrace that they drew the Republic's attention. Really? And after a year of small conflicts, also known as the False War, the Mandalorians broke through Republic lines and besieged Terrace in 3,963 BBY, and then invaded Republic through three separate corridors in what became known as the Onslaught. During this war, it was the Jedi were saying, no, let's not get involved. And I was always wondering, wait, why didn't you want to get involved? Didn't you swear loyalty to the Republic through every thick and thin? And this kind of calls for it as the Mandalorians were getting closer and closer to the core worlds. And the Jedi were like, oh, there's a war going on? Okay. We'll just sit here in our council chambers, pondering. And then there was this small splinter cell growing, known as the Revenites. I think that was the pronounce. I can't pronounce the real name, but so I just call them the Revenites. Where led by the future Sith Lord Darth Revan and his friend Malik to lead the Jedi who were splittering from the Order to attack the Mandalorians and assist the Republic. Some of the more well-known heroes was Carthanasi, Reverend, Malik, Saul, and on the other side you had Mandalore the Ultimate, Cassius Fett, and so forth. And this is where Mandalore, and this is where the Mandalorian mask that Revan wears came to happen, and that's where he took it on and vowed to defeat the Mandalorians. It originally belonged to a Mandalorian female, and she later was killed in battle, so Revan took the mask and vowed to defeat the Mandalorians. There, afterwards, would begin a series of victories for the Republic where they would conquer more and more worlds. The Republic began to fight back, and like initially when the war was happening, the Republic won several key battles led by Carthanasi, though really Mandalore the Ultimate was hiding the bulk of his fleet, the big muscle of his fleet, and just wondering, let's see how the Republic handles this. I want to see how they handle this first, and then we'll unleash the beast on them. And pretty much, I'm pretty sure the assessment was, well, the Republic could barely handle fighting my forces like this. Bring in the muscle of this fleet. Like, let's put them out of their misery mentality. Like that was how I saw it. And well, let's see. The more it got worse as the war was going on before the Jedi intervention. Like, let's see. There was an onslaught filled with nuclear attacks on Sirico. Like I said, it's hard to pronounce these planetary names and other names in the Star Wars universe. Like, I could get some right, but at times I can't. So you're gonna have to be dealing with this for a bit. Um, they launched a series of nuclear strikes against the planet, devastating it. And after, in light of the onslaught that happened, the Galactic Senate mobilized the entire Republic Navy to counter the Mandalorian threat. That didn't work. As I told you, it like initially it was looking like the Republic was winning, and then the Mandalore, the Ultimate, unleashed the bulk of his fleet. So you already know how that goes down. The war would last for a number of years until 3960 BBY at the Battle of Malachor 5, and well, let's just say the battle there was pretty devastating. It was the first time there was a wound in the Force, a pain in the Force, pretty much, where there was this gaping hole in the Force, and for some reason it looked like it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And as Kreia said in Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Mandalorian Wars were a series of massacres that masked another war, a war of conversion, culminating in a final atrocity that no Jedi could walk away from, save one. And we all know who that one is, the Exile. I know she has a real name, but I'm just going to call her the Jedi Exile. She was a general in the war. She fought at Malachor 5 and managed to survive the mass shadow generator attack that ended the war. Mandalore the Ultimate was slain in this battle, and this is where he finally realized something that he told Reverend, but how Reverend would succumb to the dark side later on, and would ultimately forget these memories until later on in the book called Reverend. That the Sith manipulated Mandalore the Ultimate to carry out this plan. Like the Sith were planning this attack on the Republic centuries later, but they wanted to test the Republic's fleet first. They wanted to test how strong the Republic was and also cripple it. So they led to the Mandalorian Wars, where the Sith Emperor was pretty much the puppet master controlling Mandalore the Ultimate with the dark side of the Force, or as I call it, the negative side of the Force, and basically clutched onto Mandalore the Ultimate's mind and told him to basically start this big crusade. And well, we all know how that ended up for him. And like as I said, this would be the battle that would set the war that sets in sights for the Jedi Civil War, which I already covered in a previous video. And lastly, after this point, it was pretty much downhill for the Jedi, because not only was the Mandalorian Wars crippling the Order, then the Jedi Civil War happened, and the Mandalorian clans were broken. Like Revan hid the mask of Mandalore so there could be no successor. The Jedi were already crippled since they lost members, and a lot of them would defect to the dark side due to Revan falling to it by the Sith Emperor when he traveled into the unknown regions to head to Dromund Kaas to hunt down the remaining Mandalorians. So that happened, and here's the list of consequences. Revan forced the defeated Mandalorians to disarm and hid Mandalore's armor, the symbol of their leadership, and that really ruined it. And later on, while they were investigating the influence of the Sith, they had Malik and Revan fell to the dark side along with the soldiers and Jedi who followed Revan in the war. And they formed their own Sith Empire and invaded the Republic in the subsequent conflict known as the Jedi Civil War. Lastly, the Jedi Civil War, as we all know, was a devastating conflict, and it crippled the Order to down just 100 Jedi's left, or at least hundreds or so, and only a few would remain. And along with that, it led to the first ever Jedi Purge, led by Darth Nullius, as I call him as, where he and the Sith Trimetive try to wipe out what was left of the Jedi during this purge. And I'm curious to why they don't ever cover that in Star Wars The Old Republic MMO. Like, they never really cover that. But ultimately, this conflict was very big at the time, kind of obvious by now. It had a lasting impact on the Republic, and also there was other famous people later on down the road from this war would be Anton Rad, the Jedi Killer, as I like to call him, Bodar. I think that was the name. He had the arm. Those who remember him from Knights of the Old Republic too. And along with that, there's Kreia, who survived the Mandalorian Wars, and the battle began. The war pretty much early started on the moon of Duxon, which was the moon for Onderon. So there's that. Well, everyone, this was Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate, and stay tuned for more.